A car repair, an ER bill, a week of reduced hours. That used to be a setback for millions of Americans now. It feels like the moment their whole budget starts collapsing. Picture it landing on a Tuesday. You are looking at your phone, and there it is, one charge, one number, $1,000, give or take, and for about 3 seconds, your brain does what it always does. It tries to absorb it calmly, tries to tell you this is fine, this is manageable, this is the kind of thing people handle. Then the second calculation starts. Rent is due in 9 days. Not in a theoretical, someday way, in a 9 days way. The car insurance comes out automatically on the 15th. You have not done a big grocery run yet this week. There is still that minimum payment sitting at the edge of your checking account, the one you told yourself you would just roll over one more time. And you were already running the month a little thin because last month had its own thing, its own version of this same moment. And now there is this, $1,000, landing right in the middle of all of that. Watch what happens to the math. You are not doing this slowly. You are doing it in real time, in seconds, the way your brain fires when something feels wrong. You start mentally moving money that is not really movable. You think about the savings account, and then you remember what is actually in it. You think about waiting until payday, and then you count the days and feel the number shrink. You think about the credit card, and something in your chest tightens slightly, the way it does when a solution is also a new problem. Nothing has been missed yet, not a single bill. The rent is still on time. The lights are still on. By every technical measure, you are okay, but you do not feel okay. You feel like the ground shifted. That feeling, that specific, stomach-dropping sensation of one charge turning into a whole month problem is not irrational. It is not anxiety overreacting. It is not a failure of perspective. It is information. It is your budget telling you something true about itself. The scary part is not the bill. It is what kind of life that bill is landing on. Bet you here's what changed. And it did not change all at once, which is part of why it is so hard to name. Think about the month before the emergency. Just an ordinary month, nothing unusual. You are earning what you earn, spending what the month requires, keeping up, and if you watch where every dollar goes, you start to see something that does not feel like a crisis, but has the shape of one. Housing takes its share first, not what housing used to take, what it takes now, whether you are renting or carrying a mortgage. The number is bigger relative to your income than it was 5 years ago. And the gap has not closed. Then insurance comes out, health, car, renters or homeowners, and if you have kids, any number of additional lines that did not used to exist or used to be smaller. Then food, because the grocery receipt that used to be a manageable line is now the thing you look at twice before you leave the store. Then the car payment, or if not a payment, the maintenance, the gas, the tabs, the repair you put off last season that is still waiting. Then childcare if that applies to you, which is its own category of financial violence dressed up as a monthly line item. And then the debt, the credit cards, the student loans, the buy now, pay later charges that felt like solutions 3 months ago and now just feel like obligations. Now watch the budget bar fill. Each one of those categories slides in. Housing, insurance, food, transportation, childcare, debt service. Watch how fast the space disappears. Not dramatically, not all at once, just steadily, category by category. The way water fills a glass when you are not looking directly at it. And then the bar is almost full, not fully full. There is a sliver left. A thin margin at the end of the month that is technically money, but realistically, it is already spoken for by whatever ordinary thing has not happened yet. That sliver used to be wider, not dramatically wider, not a cushion in the comfortable sense, but wide enough that if something ordinary went wrong, a brake job, a copay, 3 days without work, you could stretch into it. You could absorb the hit without everything else feeling the pressure. That is the sliver that has been disappearing, not because people started spending recklessly, not because anyone forgot how to budget, because each of the categories feeding into that bar has been pulling more, quietly, consistently, month after month, until the margin is almost theoretical. And this is the part that does not show up in the emergency. And so, this is what happens before the emergency. The crisis feeling in your chest the moment the charge lands. That feeling does not start with the bill. It starts from already knowing, somewhere below conscious thought, that there is almost no room. You are not overreacting to $1,000. You are accurately reading how little space you had before it arrived. Once that buffer disappears, the emergency does not stay one problem for long. Part 3. So the charge lands. And because there is no slack, because the bar was already nearly full, the emergency cannot just sit in its own lane. It has to go somewhere. It has to come from something. Maybe you have savings. Some people do. Not much. Because much has been hard to accumulate when every month runs this tight. But something. You drain the account or most of it, and you feel the specific dread of watching a number that took months to build disappear in one transaction. The emergency is covered, technically, but now the account is empty. And the next disruption, whatever it is, whenever it comes, will have nothing to land on. Maybe you do not have savings? Then the card comes out. And this is where the emergency stops being $1,000. Because now there is a balance. And the balance carries interest. Not a dramatic interest rate in the abstract. A concrete, compounding, monthly interest rate that starts working on the charge the moment it posts. You intended to pay it off quickly. You almost certainly will not. Because the month is already full and there was no extra before the emergency and there will be no extra after. So the minimum payment goes in, which means the balance stays. Which means next month you are covering the emergency again, a little at a time while everything else the month requires has not shrunk at all. Then something else comes due, a bill you were current on, a payment you had every intention of making. But the card payment ate into the checking account, and the checking account was already running thin, and now you are looking at a choice you did not think you would have to make. You pay one thing or you pay the other. You cannot pay both, not fully. Not this month. Then the late fee arrives. This is an to the Ministry of Finance this month. It is not a large fee, $25. Something that in a different month would be a minor annoyance. But in this month, in this sequence, that fee lands on top of the card, interest on top of the original emergency. And you are no longer managing one problem. You are managing a stack. Then the stress changes something. Not in a dramatic way, just in the way that financial pressure always does, quietly at the edges of decision-making. You skip a thing you needed because you cannot face another charge right now. You do not call the doctor back because the last visit already has a balance you have not resolved. You eat differently, shop differently. Say no to things that have costs attached, even small costs. Because you are operating in a mental environment where every dollar feels contested. Then comes the number that does not get discussed enough. What did this actually cost? Not the original emergency, not the flat charge that started this. What did the full sequence cost? The emergency plus the interest already accruing, plus the late fee, plus the thing you had to delay, plus the cost of whatever the delayed thing becomes when it finally cannot be delayed anymore. The aftershock costs more than the emergency did. This is not a rare outcome. It is the architecture of what happens when there is no buffer. Is no buffer. The emergency does not end when you cover the first chart. It ends when the ripples stop. And in a budget with no margin, the ripples do not stop quickly. That is why $1,000 feels bigger than $1,000. It is not the number. It is the trigger. It is the trigger. You are supposed to feel like you did something wrong. Like if you had been more disciplined, more forward-thinking, less prone to whatever the specific spending category is that gets held up as evidence of irresponsibility. This would not be a reality. That is the story that runs underneath conversations about emergency funds and savings benchmarks and financial preparedness. The implied message is that the people who get wrecked by a $1,000 charge simply did not prepare. That story is not just incomplete. It is actively obscuring what is actually happening. Because the fear that hits when that charge lands, the immediate, visceral, whole-body sense that the month is breaking, is not isolated to people who made bad choices. It is showing up across income levels that were not supposed to be vulnerable to it. It is showing up in households that are doing everything the advice columns tell them to do. It is showing up in working families, in dual-income households, in people who have retirement contributions set up and insurance in place, and no obvious explanation for why they feel this fragile. Think about that for a moment, not as a comfort, as a signal. The fragility is not concentrated where we were told it would be. It has spread into ordinary life in a way that makes individual preparation feel increasingly insufficient against structural pressure. You can be doing everything right and still find yourself standing in the exact same moment, staring at the same charge, feeling the same cascade begin. And the scale of this is not a small finding. Surveys consistently show that a majority of Americans report they would struggle to cover an unexpected expense at the four-figure threshold without borrowing or selling something. Not a majority of low-income Americans, a majority of Americans. People who, by most conventional measures, are participating successfully in the economy. This is not a story about a population that failed to save. It is a story about what happened to the space in which saving was supposed to occur. That space has been compressed, slowly across years, through the accumulation of costs that each felt manageable individually and have become unmanageable in aggregate. Housing, insurance, childcare, debt loads carried forward from the last disruption and the one before that. The result is a kind of fragility that does not look like poverty from the outside. The lights are on, the bills are technically current, the family is eating. But underneath that surface, the slack is gone. And without slack, every disruption, no matter how ordinary, carries the threat of cascade. This is why it feels like disaster before the disaster even fully happens. The panic is not irrational. It is the accurate read of a system that has lost its ability to absorb shocks. Hold that, because what this means is heavier than it first sounds. It means that millions of people are not experiencing occasional financial stress. They are living in a condition of permanent near crisis, where the difference between stable and spiraling depends on whether this particular month happens to stay quiet. That is an exhausting way to live. It changes how you make decisions, how you sleep, what risks feel tolerable, what futures feel reachable. The financial pressure is also a psychological weight, carried daily, in the background of every ordinary thing. So what exactly has been lost? Not just savings, not just margin in the abstract. The buffer between setback and crisis,